Hi there, thank you so much for joining me today. This video is my Pan Those Eyeshadows update for October. I'm very excited to share my progress. Even though I was away for the majority of the project, I was still able to hit pan on one of the shadows, meaning I can bring a new shadow into my quintet. A few people have been asking me when this video is going to come out because I typically post my updates within the first week of every month, but because of some changes in my schedule with traveling, I have pushed this video update to around the 20th of the month, every month until the end of the year. For my Pan Those Eyeshadows project that I'm doing next year, because I am definitely doing this again next year, I will be hopefully doing my updates once again in the first week of the month. I would like to thank Alexi for coming up with the idea of this series. She has, I think, 2 years worth of Pan Those Eyeshadows projects on her channel, so I'll have her channel, the playlist, and a bunch of other Pan Those Eyeshadows playlists linked in the description box from other people who are doing the same project. Even though I was traveling for the majority of the time between last update and this update, I do have pan on one shade. I brought one eyeshadow palette with me to Italy, and 2 shades were in here that I wanted to hit pan on that were in my quintet. So I was able to use one enough that I got pan on it. And I do have a little bit of progress on the other shadows as well because I used them before I left and after I came back. I'm actually wearing pretty much every shade except for the one I hit pan on my eyes today. Let's start with the eyeshadow that I was able to hit pan on. It's Cinder from the ABH Sultry palette. This is a really pretty bronzy shimmery shade. Really gorgeous all over the lid. I would use a lot of it to just cover my entire lid and go into my crease and go on my lower lash line with some eyeliner and mascara, and that was pretty much how I used it for the majority of the time. Sometimes I would use Dystopian, which was another shade in my quintet, on the outer corner to deepen it up and then use Cinder to brighten up the inner third, or sometimes I would do a smoky eye all over the lid and then put this in the middle, creating kind of like a halo effect. I love this palette. I'm so glad to be reaching it for it so much more, and while I was on my trip I did use a lot of other shades from this palette, so I do have a couple complementary shades to talk about in a later portion of this video. Now for the 4 shades that I didn't hit pan on but made good progress on. The second one is another shade from the Sultry palette. This is Dystopian. It's a really pretty cool toned chocolate dark brown. I really liked this as a way to deepen up my looks, or I would use it sometimes as a liner, as a shadow liner. I'm using that a little bit like that today, but I did put liquid liner over top of it, so I don't know how much of it you can see. It's a beautiful shade, but it's incredibly pigmented and a touch powdery, so you really have to only go in for the teeniest amount in order to get good payoff. So I don't think that this one is something I'll hit pan on anytime soon. It'll probably take me the remainder of the year. The next shade I was working on is a single from Clionadh Cosmetics. It's the shade Prophecy. It's a duochrome. It's got a pink base and then a gold shift. Very pretty. I'm wearing it on my lids today, and I do think I'm starting to get a decent dip in the shadow to show progress. But I just was reaching for Cinder more because it was the only eyeshadow palette that I had for 5 weeks. I will be focusing on this much more in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully if I use it often enough I can hit pan next month. It is something that I use a lot of whenever I use it. I tend to hit pan on sparkly shimmery shades faster than matte, so I think that is something, if I focus on it and really mostly use this over any other shimmery shades and use it as an inner corner highlight whenever I'm not making it the focal point of the look, then I think I can have pan on it next month. The next 2 shades are from the Queen of Hearts palette from Colored Rain. They are right next to each other. They're Ladyship and Duchess. Ladyship is the matte purple and Duchess is the matte brown. Let's look at Ladyship. This one I think I randomly chose back in July, showing very minimal progress. It is something I reach for a ton, and whenever I was using it, I was trying to cover a larger portion of my eye, make my eye mostly purple. Today I'm wearing it a little bit in the outer corner, just a little bit, just a touch. I didn't want to do like a full-on purple look, and it just is something that's going to take a long time. The mattes in this palette are very tightly packed, they're not very powdery, and they are pigmented enough that you don't have to go back and reach in for them multiple times. So even though it is something I grab for quite often, it's just going to take forever. I imagine this also will take until the end of the year to show pan, if I can even do it at all. And the next one is Duchess. It's a little bit difficult because I'm also working on another brown from the Sultry palette, Dystopian. So you know, there's only so many dark browns that I need in an everyday look. So it's like I can either use one or the other most days. It is a really pretty chocolate brown, a little bit warmer than Dystopian, so I can use it whenever I'm going for a more warm look. It's nice to have an option for each. A dark brown is a little bit more difficult for me to hit pan on. So once again, probably something I'll be working on for the next couple of months. Typically in this part of the video, I talk about bonus pans, which are other eyeshadows that I was working with a lot that I use so much I end up hitting pan on them. They're not part of my quintet, they're just bonus pans. I don't have any this month, but I do have quite a few complementary shades, which are eyeshadows that I reached for a lot to complete an eyeshadow look. Or that just went really nicely with the eyeshadows in my quintet. I do have quite a few from the Sultry palette, obviously because it was the main palette I was working with between this update and last update. I used Cyborg a lot. If I was wearing Cinder but I wanted to make it a little bit more cool toned or even just a little bit brighter, I would mix it with Cyborg and they worked really nicely together. I liked that a lot, and I do have a photo of me wearing both Cinder and Cyborg together in a look. I also reached for Twig and Birch quite a few times because I wanted some type of transition between Cinder and this really dark brown Dystopian, so I would mix Twig and Birch together. Twig is very cool toned, Birch is a little bit more of like a yellowy brown, and so mixing them together would kind of make it look a little bit more neutral, and it worked really nicely. I love those two together. I think it's a really great more neutral option if you want a transition shade between these two. Mixing them together is very helpful. I also used Pearl a lot. I love Pearl. It was a bonus pan maybe either last month or the month before. I just really like it in the inner corner. I think it's a beautiful, brightening and sparkly and pigmented shade. So I use that a lot. The pan has definitely expanded quite a bit. The next two complementary shades are from the Zoeva on Taupe palette. I have only first used this last Sunday, so I've only had it for a little bit less than a week, but every day since filming that trying new makeup video, the Get Ready With Me that I put up last Sunday, I've been using this palette every day, mainly mixing stitch by stitch and hour by hour these two shades right here. Mixing them together matches my skin tone pretty well, so I use that to set my eyeshadow primer. I just have been reaching for it. I had it out, and so I've been using it. I think it's really nice, and it's helping me to get some more use out of this palette. And the last shade is one that I actually think I might hit pan on next month. It's from the Naked 3 palette. And I haven't been able to reach for this as much as I want, but because I do just have it out in my makeup drawer, I have been playing with this shade here, Dust, a lot. And if you can see, there's actually quite a bit of a dip in there. I've just been using this as an inner corner highlight. I'm wearing it a little bit today in my inner corner. And it's not too stark, it's not too bright, so it's nice to wear it to work. And honestly, this shade isn't my favorite all over the lid. It's very crumbly, and it's not shimmery enough to be worth that hassle, you know what I mean? So it makes a really great inner corner highlight, and I've just been making a ton of progress because I use a small brush, so I've been focusing on one spot. So I might even have a pan on this next month. Now let's look at my pan percentage and my pan percentage increase. And for the first time so far this year, my percentage has actually gone down. The reason for that is because I randomly purchased a ton of palettes. I don't know what got into me, but I purchased I think 4 or 5 new palettes. Let me run through them really quick with you. The first one I bought was this Tarte Make Believe in Yourself palette. This was a limited edition palette a long time ago. I think I was on a no-buy when it first came out, so I didn't buy it. And then it randomly came back on the Tarte website and it was at a huge discount. So I picked it up and I love it, and I'm glad to have it in my collection. And then while I was in Italy, I purchased the Zoeva on Taupe. I found this in a Sephora and I picked it up. Zoeva is available on the Ulta website now, but I don't think this palette in particular is on the website, and this is the one Zoeva palette that I really wanted to try, so I was glad to find it in store. I also purchased this Smashbox and Vlada. This is the Cover Shot Petal Metal eyeshadow palette, the Vlada version, and this I think it might still be on the Ulta website for like $15. So I picked it up because I've been wanting one of these little Cover Shot palettes, and I've just been really into gold, like rose golds and pinks right now. That's just really where I'm at, and I don't have a ton of those in my collection, so this and the Naked 3 palette are kind of giving me all the rose gold that I could need. And then lastly, I picked up the Urban Decay On the Run. What's it called? Born to Run? Yeah, it's Born to Run. I keep saying On the Run, but it's Born to Run. And this, I mean, the packaging alone is gorgeous, and it's just something that I hear about all the time. It keeps going on sale on the Sephora and Ulta website for like you know, 30 or 40% off, and I kept missing it every time and I kept kicking myself for doing it. So I said, if it goes on sale again, then I'll purchase it, and it did right before I left, so I picked it up. I haven't really got to use it on my eyes yet. I've been swatching it a little bit, and I'm just so excited to have these gorgeous blues and greens. I mean, just in general, I think this palette is really pretty, and I hear it's much higher quality than the Naked palettes. So I'm excited to play with this, and I'm happy to have it in my collection, but there are quite a few shades in here. 21. There's 21 shades in this palette alone. So I'm adding a ton of eyeshadows to my collection within a few months' time, which is going to bring my pan percentage down. So I think last month I had 164 shadows to play with. This month I have 197, so I've gone up 33 eyeshadows. So my pan percentage last month before buying all the shadows was 21.3%. Because of the increased number of eyeshadows that I've purchased, it's down to 17.8%. And because I did hit pan on Cinder, that's one more that I've hit pan on, meaning I have 36 pans out of 197 shadows, making my pan percentage 18.3%. So I'm below 20% again, which 20% is my goal, 20+% is my goal. I'm hoping to hit enough pan before the end of the year to still be at 20%. I just need to stop buying so many palettes. I don't know what got into me. So hopefully I can just calm down and stop buying all these palettes and maybe my pan percentage will still hit 20 by the end of the year. So I have my Pretty Random app, and I have the minimum at 1 and the maximum 197, and I'm going to do it with you on the screen. I do want to point out that if I randomly select another brown, I'm just going to skip ahead and re-choose another number. I've hit enough pan on browns this year. I don't need another one. I want a chance at another interesting shade, a colorful shade, or just something other than a brown. So I'm going to skip ahead, even though I do really like the randomness of it. No more browns. And next year I might either do 2 spreadsheets, or I might just have a rule that if I get more than 1 brown in my quintet, then I'll skip ahead. That seems like the easier option to me. Okay, my number is 172. I think that might be one of the newer shades then. Okay, 172 is from the Zoeva On Taupe palette, and it's the shade Outline, which is this taupey shade right here in the middle. That's really pretty. I haven't used it on my actual eyelids yet, but it is a really pretty taupey shade. It reminds me of the bottom shade from that Wet n Wild Silent Treatment trio that came out a couple years ago. I don't think they make it anymore, but it's really pretty. I like that. And it'll be a really nice all over the lid shade, and I'm glad to have some more cool tones in my quintet to play with. I'm going to swatch the other shades on the back of my hand and come back. Alright, so that is the quintet that I'm playing with this month. It's going to look a lot like it did last month because I only switched out 1 shade. I'm excited to have a more cool tone shade in my quintet. I've been kind of itching towards using more cool tone shadows and more neutral shadows. So I don't think it'll be a problem using that more. I will definitely focus on Prophecy before I use a ton of outline, just because I do want to move that out and bring a new shade in. I think all of these shadows I've had at least for 2 or 3 months, so I'm itching to kind of push them out so I can bring new stuff in. Depending on how difficult they are to pan, for my last month I might not bring in any new shades and just focus on what I have and just try to hit pan on everything before the end of the year. I'm not sure how I'll do it for my very last month, but I still have I think 1 or 2 months before I have to make that decision. I am excited to work with these a little bit more. I think working with these 2 cool tone shades, the gray and the brown, I think I'll probably get a ton of use out of that. And I think it'll be cool to put together that outline shade and Ladyship, the purple shade. I think that'll be a really pretty combo, so I'll probably play with that a lot. Even though I have been playing with similar shades for the past couple of months, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily sick of any of these. I think maybe I'm sick of the concept of having browns, a lot of browns in all of my quintets, just because it's something I use anyway, and it is exciting to hit pan on a brown shadow, but it's more exciting to hit pan on a more colorful shadow. So I don't have anything bad to say about my quintet. I am excited to play with these a little bit more, and hopefully I can move some shades out and create some more interesting quintets at the end of the year. I am going to include a little slideshow full of snapshots from each month, each quintet that I was playing with each month, and then I'll include a couple of photos of looks that I created using the shadows from my quintet and my complementary shades, and I'll try to label which shadows I used in each look so that you have a better idea of how I got them. But in the meantime, that's everything I have. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!